And welcome back. This is your man Warrior, and I am really excited today. We are going to be doing a brand new video on ships. That's right. Ships are getting the much deserved respect that they have needed since the very, very beginning. What we've needed is for them to regain the viability that they have since lost, because now everybody's running the same stuff and we want it to be different. And I've got a couple of guests with me that are going to talk about how it's changing. Go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, I'm Chris. I'm the resident ships designer here, mostly. Just really happy to be here.
What's up, guys? This is Michael. I help design units in Capital Games, and I help Chris out with some of the ship kit rework design. So,
Very awesome.
Really excited to be here.
Well, I appreciate having both of you on. I appreciate you guys coming to take a look at this. And now ships, I get really excited for. I know a lot of people say that they're not. It's kind of like the stepchild that gets ignored, but I actually still enjoy doing the battles. I don't auto or anything like that. So there's a huge change in the works. Go ahead and explain what's the basic change that's happening and why are we going to this change?
So overall, the basic change is just to ultimately make the ship's feature more engaging. Like you were saying, it's perceived as the stepchild, and we're trying to spice it up. I know it's been perceived for a long time as the stepchild, and just to put on the record, I've been working on it a while, and I'm excited to finally be able to share it with you guys. So some of the big changes is starting out with 3 ships instead of 5. And reinforcement abilities, all that stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. And so what do you think is going to happen when there's only 3 ships versus 5 ships in the starting lineup?
So what we're going for here is starting out with 3 puts a lot of strategic choice into the player's hands and a lot more pressure from the get-go. Rather than starting with 5, not being able to reinforce right away, you have this feeling of comfortability where you're like, all right, I have a full fleet. They're all healthy. I can, slowly make choices, and it's maybe not have too many repercussions. But starting out with 3, and maybe in the starting lineup, getting one ship gets damaged pretty good, you immediately have this like, oh, okay, I really need to plan this out. I really need to make a strategic choice, and every choice feels more impactful. So that's really what we're going for with the ship's combat overall.
So the first thing everybody's going to think is, okay, there's only 3 ships, really easy to chew through 3 ships. Now what's going to happen to Arena? It's going to really shake things up. What do you guys think is going to happen with the top 50, top 100? Do you think it's going to become, for certain individuals with wider arrays of ships available, easier, or do you feel like the climb daily is going to become harder?
I think with the changes we've made, with a lot of the reworks of the kits, it'll definitely feel different. I think it's going to really open up the viability of other ships. I think we're aware that right now the ship's meta is pretty much the same thing across the board. So now that we've brought a lot of the other ships that haven't had a lot of attention up to a point where they're a lot more viable, I think we'll hopefully be seeing a lot of changes in fleets, and that might differ between whether or not you choose the starting lineup, or if you want those ships and reinforcements to gain those reinforcement effects when they come in.
True. Now, you just said reinforcement effects, and I love that, and I actually got to take a look at that a little bit in game. I know this is all beta footage, subject to change, but can you tell us a little bit about some of the reinforcement abilities and the new ability mats, and how to access these new abilities and how they'll interact with the viability and or the usability of certain ships?
Sure. Yeah. So overall, how the reinforcement abilities, the intent of how we're looking for those to play out is really like a cards in hand kind of feel, where you have 4 reinforcements and you've specifically put ones in there to deal with certain situations. So you have options to deal with what's currently happening in the battlefield.
We're introducing more ways to use a single ship, right?
Yeah.
Like before, it's like doesn't matter when you reinforce like whether or not you put the ship in the starting lineup or the reinforcement. Is just the timing of when they can use their fixed set of abilities. But right now it's like, when you put the ship in the starting lineup, they can, of course, you get access to their abilities earlier. But if you put them as a reinforcement, then you get access to their reinforcement abilities, which I personally find really interesting. And I really look forward to the amount of theory crafting the players can do with that. So
Yeah, it's going to add like a lot of swing to the battle where you might feel at one point like you're in a really good spot, and then somebody reinforces with a specific ship, and it turns the tide of battle, and you're constantly on this like, all right, I got to make sure I'm doing the right thing here. Yep. And then I think we're still working out where, like in terms of materials and whatnot, like what that's going to look like and where we're going to put them and all that.
Yep.
So what it sounds like is every single ship is going to get some addition, which is going to give them additional viability and usability, basically giving them more tools in the toolkit, if you want to say that kind of per se. And so they'll have more relevance, even if they're in the back lineup for when they come out.
Exactly, yeah. And I think it'll also open up like play style versatility to where like if you like a certain starting lineup, you can decide, okay, well, what's going to assist this lineup coming in with these specific reinforcement abilities.
So what's really cool, and that kind of segues into the next part, is there are a lot of ships in the game. I know a lot of people say we need more ships, but really we don't need more ships. What we need is the other ships to become viable, right? And usable. And so this opens up to things such as the First Order. I mean, at this point now, they are not viable. There's a couple of ships that are used, like the Cubs fan Han calls it the TIE Slicer. I love to poke.
Slicer.
I love to poke at him a little bit with that. He'll watch it and he'll laugh, I'm sure. But the TIE Silencer, right? It's pretty usable right now. It's pretty fast and it does a lot of damage. And if you can get it to wind up, it can do quite a bit. But all in all, most of the First Order ships, other than that and maybe the First Order TIE Pilot, really aren't used. I mean, not a lot of people use the command shuttle, things like that. So this brings about a whole new synergy. Plus, with all the new abilities, I mean, ships that were less relevant or not relevant at all actually gain some relevance. Can you speak on any particular factions that you're particularly excited about individuals discovering or exploring?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're kind of hitting it on the head with in terms of like faction synergy. That's something like when we looked at initial intent, we really wanted there to be more faction synergies with the faction synergies that are available. So we looked at that as a whole. We looked at First Order, we looked at the Rebels, and then the other one that we were looking at that we're excited about is the Genosians too. Like Genosians having like that hive mind, and how can we synergize the Genosians to be a better fleet together, was something we're super excited about, and looking forward to you guys being able to play around with it and see how it works out.
Well, I'm super excited as well because, as we all know, the Geonosians are like the slowest ships in the game. And so I'm really excited to see how you can take a slow faction that has very little usability and bring them back to the forefront of a super competitive fleet arena ships. So is there a particular synergy you guys are looking forward to on your own personal accounts playing?
That's a tough question. I think for me personally, it is Genosians. I think only because like when we originally did Genosians, we had that like synergy in mind, and it didn't really hit that mark. So I'm personally really excited to be able to play with Genosians and have them play really well together. How about you, Mike?
So I remember when I was still like on the balance team when the ship feature was about to come out. And I actually really enjoyed the Galactic Republic faction because like their sustainability was like actually extremely strong, and to a point where I think I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it actually felt a little annoying when you're going against it. But I think we did make some changes that make it there a lot more player interactions with those like sustainability that I think the player will actually find it like enjoyable to use, and if they make the right strategic play, they can actually counter that sustainability well. So, I'm really looking forward to how player interacts with that faction. So
there are some factions right now that are pretty popular. Obviously, the Empire ships very specifically, and like everyone uses the bigs. Are there going to be any like lack of synergy with going forward with some of these ships to where people feel kind of forced to break this puzzle they currently have up and try what's going to encourage people to, I guess, venture out and try new ships with this new thing, other than maybe them just defaulting to using the same ships but putting more of them in the backup?
So I think the big thing there is like we were saying earlier, like raising the viability of other ships. I don't think our intention is not to reduce the empire or break that up, but just introduce other factions that will maybe counter that better. So we're going for more of the like rock paper scissors feel, where the empire will still be a great fleet, but this other faction can compete with that when they're on defense type thing.
Yeah, and like just to add to that, like I think the reinforcement ability is also another way to like add diversity to the fleet arena, right? Like you can have 7 same ships from 2 different players, but they can rearrange it differently. Like one put TIE fighter in reinforcement, the other start with it, and that's like a very different feel when you're like going against it or playing with that team.
Definitely.
So I think I really believe that reinforcement ability itself is already adding diversity, and plus all the work that Chris did too, and our game balance team did to make sure other factions are also viable in the fleet arena. So like we're actually doing multiple pushes to increase ship arena diversity. So I'm really excited to see what our players' feedback will be, because I'm personally, as a player, I'm really excited about it. So
just to kind of clarify what you're talking about so people understand is it's not about a ship just coming out from the reinforcements and using their ability that's set as default in the game, such as their second ability or first. What you're talking about is an additional new ability that's very specifically only triggered when they're coming in as reinforcements, and it's a very powerful ability that triggers upon coming into the battle. And so I just want to make sure we're clarifying so people understand we're not just talking about the existing ship's abilities. Rather, this is a brand new ability. Every single ship will have a new ability for reinforcement. Am I correct on that?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. And that will create way more viability. I know you can't answer it because we can't see the future. You can give me the glass ball if you have one, but I'm guessing you don't. What do you think, though, is going to happen, not just with the meta, but specifically with the leaderboard as far as the top 20, top 50 are concerned? Do you think it's going to be shook up really bad, or do you think the leaders will stay the leaders, or do you think that the individuals who have the widest array of ships and not just the best 5 are going to fare? How do you think it's going to shake up the meta?
I personally, I think we're going to see a lot of variety there. We can't really say how it's going to turn out, but I imagine with the viability of different fleets, and not even just factions, because I mean some of the ships that don't have full factions have been made to be a bit more modular, so you can plug and play them where you want to. I think we'll see more variety at the top rather than just Chimera.
Yeah, I agree with Chris there. Like, I really want to see just like different combination and see what our players are able to come up with in terms of like mix and matching, like starting lineup and reinforcements and like here's another thing, like how they act, like the order of when they play each of their reinforcement is also very critical too. So even like 2 identical teams with identical lineup, like that fight could go very differently as well. So
it's pretty crazy. So I'm sure you guys have been intimate with these ships for a very long time, but even more so just recently, especially in these reworks, and have designed all of these very unique abilities. Tell me your favorite ability that you have as a backup ability that's going to come in that you really love it. It may not even be the most overpowered ability. You just think it's very, very cool. Maybe it has something to do, like, for example, I'm just going to throw this out there and maybe this will get your creative juices flowing. We all know that 5s, in season 3 stole an Umbaran Starfighter, and that is an amazing a couple of shows where this whole battle sequence occurs and he steals the Umbaran. And so like in the game, you guys gave 5s an Umbaran. He's not even an Umbaran, right? But he stole one in a show, and so you guys have him in the game with it, like the stolen Umbaran ship, and like that makes me happy as a fan. There's little things like that I know you guys love. I'd almost call them Easter eggs that you guys put in there for the real fans. Did you do anything like that in these backup synergies that you can think of, or just even a backup synergy that you maybe a backup ability that you put in that you're like, this is it, we have to do this for this character or this ship?
That's a good question. So Poe Dameron's X-Wing came up with a really cool ability of like Poe enters the battlefield with this unique buff that makes him stronger, and if you can defeat an enemy with it, it refreshes the buff. So it's kind of like this high offense like can spiral out of control if you don't take care of it.
That's pretty awesome, and I know a lot of people that run Poe, and he happens to be the fastest ship in the game. Quick question, I know a lot of people are probably wondering, are you guys going to be doing a balance to any of the stats of the ships, from how hard they hit, their offense numbers, maybe their health or protection numbers, or is there anything that will be added shortly that will modify their stats? Now, I know that raid gear 5 and 6 are coming, and that will potentially increase stuff in that sense, because we know for their galactic power increases, natural health and speed increases occur. But aside from that, are you guys planning any kind of a balance or adjustment to any of the existing numbers with any of the ships in game as they are?
So we looked at a balance overall of the ships, because going with more fast pace, but it wasn't specifically for individual ships. It was just like, okay, well, we're reducing the time for fleet arena battles from 7.5 minutes to 5 minutes, because they can be done quicker. And then like, how do their current stats make that viable? So it was more of a broad overlooking all ships to make sure like their health values and their attack values could make for a viable, well-timed battle.
So I guess my question is, maxed out Poe Dameron right now at like 196 speed. After this update, is he still going to be 196 speed in the fastest ship in the game, or will there be changes to other ship stats that might mix that whole meta up with their abilities, or not their abilities but their stats?
So like I don't have like we don't have all the detail of like all the stat changes that we have, but I think it's important to like evaluate any changes in the context of like this ship 2.0. Like we didn't purposely buff or nerf any ships because of their performance in 5v5. It's all about making this whole ship 2.0 feels good, like feels balanced and fun to play with. So I think like we can't really compare numbers in 5v5 to 3v3. That would be like comparing apple to oranges. So I just want to throw that out there. Like it's important for the players to not compare numbers they see in this new rework to what they're experiencing previously.
And the truth be told, I'll throw this out there from my own 2 cents. I'm not a developer. I don't make games, but I do feel like for the health of a game, especially when a mode changes drastically, that the potential for things needing to be looked at and readjusted is totally and completely acceptable on a game standpoint. So I think if there are some minor changes there, but if you don't have very specifics, that's okay. We're going to trust that you're doing it for the health and the welfare of the game, obviously.
For sure.
So that's awesome, and I'm excited. You guys got to obviously test out some of these 3v3 battles. How long did it take you approximately to win a battle this time on manual?
Usually, this is my personal experience with it. It's usually around 3 minutes or so, depending on like who you're going up against. Like if you're going up against more the sustained fleet, like the Mace fleet, it might be a little longer. But yeah, especially when we cut down the timer to 5 minutes, we had to make sure you could complete a battle in 5 minutes, and I think because of the swing that the reinforcement ability brings and everything else included, because you have that intense feel the whole time, and it is quick. Yeah, 3 minutes or so. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I would add that I'm roughly around the same time as you, but I would add that the duration, the perception of the whole fight definitely feels a lot more intense, because now you can feel like, oh crap, like I'm about to lose because I only have one ship, but then you get that reinforcement ability and like it bring you back up. So like I would say like 2 to 3 minutes, but like the feeling and the pacing of the battle, the whole thing just flows a lot better compared to the current version. So
Pretty awesome. Is there anything else about ships you'd like everybody to know about, other than, I know we got kind of intent and how it's going to be and some of the backup abilities, and obviously they're very soon going to get this in game and they'll get to play and experience it for themselves, and it's kind of getting rebalanced so all the ships make sense. There's going to be more synergies for all the ships. Is there anything that we're missing that's overt that we should mention before we end the video?
I think one extra thing is just overall, just so everybody has a clear picture of ships in general, that it was looked at complete picture, territory battles, challenges, events, everything. That way, it's not like, just for clarity, it's not like people are going to be playing like a 3v3 battle in PvP, but like everything else is 5v5. Like this is across all ships.
So that brings me to one last question that's totally off topic, but it does have to do with ships. And this is a couple of patrons have begged me, nay, I say they pay me to ask you. And that is the Akbar challenge going to be looked at? It is the 6-star to 7-star is the toughest challenge in the game. It is highly RNG dependent. Do you guys think this rework of this is going to integrate into this challenge and make it maybe slightly easier for the player base?
I think it'll definitely, I mean, especially the starting fleet, it'll definitely change it, especially since you're starting with 3, they're starting with 3, and then looking at what they reinforce with, because it'll be more synergistic, what they reinforce with and how that affects it. I think it's safe to say it'll definitely feel different.
Have you guys played out the challenges reworked like that yet? Any other challenges or any of the nodes that you're building and playtesting? Have you seen that the synergies defensively are going to be harder to get through than maybe a traditional battle for the nodes that will be created? So
I think we've reworked quite a bit of those, and then just playing through like some of the PvE content as well. It'll bring different strategies. So it might be, depending on what you're going up against, there might be the rock to that paper that you need to, or scissors to that paper that you need to bring to get through that battle.
And there might be like multiple scissors or rocks that you can bring now because the varieties of like reinforcement abilities and just the different team buildings that the players can do. So yeah, like you guys might find more strategies than the ones that we found.
Yeah.
So.
Well, very cool. I really appreciate both of you hopping on and explaining all about ships, and I'm really, really excited to not just have tested it in beta, but also have it in game. It looks like a very exciting addition. I'm excited for the additional pieces to be utilized in the game now, finally, and for it to be more dynamic, and for all ships to have a purpose and relevance, especially with the new PvE content and then PvP being shook up a lot. I appreciate both of you guys coming on board and having this video with me. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us, man. It's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. As always, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below and keep your gaming on. Warrior, out.